Hello, my name is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar, Implementing AMRs in Your Warehouse, a Crawl, Walk, Run Approach. Today we have industry expert and Vecna Robotics Enterprise Sales Representative Yvette Awa, who will outline a range of use cases for integrating high-capacity autonomous mobile robots into workflows and share the results of a case study where a large manufacturer and distributor increased productivity and throughput after implementing AMRs. Yvette will also be joined by Amanda Beyer, Director of Marketing at Vecna Robotics. Should you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them through the console on your screen and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. And with that, let's get started. Yvette, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Marina. It's so good to be here this afternoon. We have been talking about this for quite a while now, so it's finally great to get something together and out there for a lot of people to understand not only a little bit more about Vecna, but also our, crawl, walk, run approach. So, and let's get started. So I want to start off by just talking a little bit about Vecna Robotics. Now, we are a material handling automation provider. We work with using our solutions to help different organizations in distribution and warehousing and manufacturing to help their workflow efficiencies. And we actually spun out from our parent company, Vecna Technologies, in 2018. So we have been, really focused on putting a lot of efforts into utilizing those technologies in R&D. As you can see on the slide, we have over $60 million that we have invested in robotics R&D. We just finished our Series B funding round earlier this year in January 2020 of $50 million. So we're in a good position to really just advance our technologies, help the market, test out, and really scale. We have over 100 employees. We have a part of that deep industry expertise, a lot of our leadership. They have been in the industry for well over 15 and 20 years, just really providing a lot of our leadership, a lot of the perspectives within the industry. We're privately owned and venture-backed, as I had mentioned. And one thing is that I wanted to mention is our integration and support. We have our Network Operations Center here in Waltham, which is outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So a really great time. We have our facilities. It's not only manufacturing space, but a great place for demos and things like that. We service all of our customers from our office as well. So 24/7 support, which is something that's huge. Our co-founder is actually the president and co-founder of Mass Robotics. And if you haven't heard, those on the call, if you haven't heard about Mass Robotics, that the organization as a whole deals with a lot of different initiatives around building the space within robotics and working and partnering with robotics companies and also working in the space of education and just bringing people together. One of the main initiatives there is working on interoperability standards across the board. I know, Amanda, you have been working in, being a part of leading the march with a lot of our projects and our awards, right, this year?
Yeah, thanks for that. We've had a very busy year. Supply and Demand Chain Executive actually recognized us as one of the top 100 supply chain projects of 2020 for our work with Milton Cat. Supply Chain Brain, 100 great partners of 2020 for our work with Jodas. We were nominated to RBR 50 for the 8th time in 10 years. And we're also part of the MIT Startup Exchange. So yeah, it's been a very busy and a very exciting year for us.
Yeah, it has been. So that's just a little bit about us as a company. And right now we wanted to go in a little bit about the industry as a whole. So we know the environment that we're in, the coronavirus and what it's truly done not only to businesses but also, you know, us at home, and how we've shifted a lot of our focus, and how we shop, how we purchase, how we live. Within the food and beverage, for instance, you know, the area where I manage here at Vecna is, you see, you know, Food and Safety Modernization Act, right? That's requiring companies to identify and prevent risks, document and plan and monitor. We also see 94% are using robotics in food packaging operations and things like that, looking at increased labor costs, right? Where the retention is a challenge, where how do you keep your workers, but also the investment of that. You know, companies like Amazon, they're really, really investing a lot in their employees just for retention. They're up over 300% in turnover. And so also with consumer demand, you know, online shopping, you know, shopping online, not only clothes, but something else.
Yeah, that homebody economy really speaks to me. About I don't know about you, but I know that I've been getting all of my groceries delivered to the home.
Yeah. So, and Amanda, actually, that's a true story, because Amanda always talks about, you know, purchasing her groceries online, and I still haven't converted. I haven't made the jump, but as far as products, I'm all there. So that's just to show you, you know, 10% growth in online customer base across many different industries, and that homebody economy is real. The amount of brownfield sites that we're seeing, the increase in retail spaces and being, you know, utilized and converted into industrial space, and a lot of those things. So these are just some of the changes that we're seeing in how we are going to look forward post-COVID.
Hmm.
So this gives us and allows us to the opportunity to talk about automation, right? And automation, how can we use automation to really, you know, connect the dots, and how are we going to reach, how are we going to keep our workers safe? How are we going to increase retention rates and, you know, push through more product, but, you know, while keeping employees safe and improving reporting? And the only way to do that is with automation. 34% of organizations are currently utilizing AGVs, and for those on the call that are unfamiliar with AGVs, it's automated guided vehicles. And so that's a picture of Vecna's AGV, or we also synonymously call it an AMR, but within a warehouse. And 55% of organizations plan to upgrade or implement that in the future.
Yeah, and I bet it may be worthwhile just to kind of highlight the differences between AMRs and AGVs. I know that throughout this presentation we're referring to them interchangeably somewhat, but they are different. Could you explain a little bit about what the difference is there?
That's true. Good question. Thank you, Amanda. So when we say AGV versus AMR, an AGV, depending on who you talk to, they'll say, oh, the size of this particular robot is an AGV because it's big, versus smaller robots, they will call them AMRs. But however, you're referring to the technology behind it. AGVs tend to path follow. You know, you put in a rule book and it goes a route according to how you set it, and there's no flexibility. It follows wires and maybe tape or magnets on the flooring, you know, things like that. An AMR, on the other hand, is smart. So it's like a smartphone versus, you know, your old school flip phone. But in a sense, it uses the technology to calculate a way around obstacles. So, you know, it has obstacle avoidance or exception handling and things like that. Infrastructure free. Definitely doesn't require any of those things that an AGV would, of having, you know, wires and tape and things like that. So those are just the main points. But thank you, Amanda, actually.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great description.
Perfect. So we'll go into how do we begin when you are first looking at ways of implementing your first AMR into your facility, you're going to need to do a number of things. So I think this puts us in the next point, Amanda, where we'll have a poll question.
Yeah, let's move into that poll question. So we want to just get a sense for where everybody's at on this call, just kind of understand, why you're here and some of the challenges that you're facing. So you'll see a little box pop up on your screen if you wouldn't mind just submitting your response to the following question. What's the biggest challenge you experience in getting started with self-driving industrial vehicles? And again, that could be an AGV or an AMR. Again, on this call, we're using those terms interchangeably. We're talking primarily high weight capacity vehicles. So the options are upfront capital, determining ROI, identifying the right application, confidence in the technology, stakeholder buy-in, competing investment priorities, or all of the above. So we'll give each just a second to respond to this question.
Yeah, and I know just from a lot of people that I talk to, they definitely, a number of those things, so it could be all the above, but just answer accordingly. So that leads us to the next portion of why crawl, walk, and run, right? So the hardest part is getting started. I can say as a retired collegiate athlete, I ran track and field at the University of South Florida. Go Bulls. But, we didn't just do our, training. You just don't show up for a meet. You have to train off season, right? And that's with anything in life. And you have to start. And the hardest part is getting started and conditioning. And you learn fast with little risk by starting small. So this allows you to gain data and insights and just work on really the fundamentals of what are you trying to accomplish, how can you reach these initiatives with automation, and help these simple workflows to become more efficient. With this, you're going to get site and operation specific feedback, a lot of some of the reporting that you receive is all data, and it's all your personal data, how your specific operation in your facility, is. And it will inform your future strategy. So creating an application profile and things like that. You're going to, we are, as a team, we're going to train a small team of staff on the system just to get familiar with Vecna, the technology, but also within the warehouse, helping your employees become champions of it, and learning it and promoting it and not replacing them. So it's a conversation that is a great conversation to have, because you do want your employees to really enjoy going to work, to be in an environment that everything is seamless, right, Amanda? Like, we know that that working and introducing robots could be a learning curve.
Yeah, and I love this word champions. So often we hear stories coming back from our deployments about, town halls that we hold with the workers there in the facilities, and, we introduce them to the robots. We tell them, a little bit about the technology behind it and how they'll be interacting with the robots. And, we get so many stories about the workers there just getting so amped up and so excited about this new technology. So they really are your champions. They really are the ones that are going to usher this through. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and it helps with the increased adoption of it. So so it's really important to get that champion out there. So we have divided, the meat of this discussion or this webinar today into 5 sections. And so to keep it simple, selecting what it takes, what's the stage of selecting your vehicle, selecting the robot, deploying it, evaluating those results and what you get from the data, ingesting it really, and then turning it into information that you can utilize, and then adapting. And once you adapt, you find the perfect sauce, then you're going to scale. And so right now we'll go into selecting. Okay, so we have picked, I'll say within this presentation, our top 3 most, I'll say the applications that we've seen the most and the most frequent, I'll put it that way. I'll include just some information about, 3 different applications with 3 different customers, and just a little, information about them. After the call, I know Marina will probably follow up with everyone to send this information through, because some of the information could be a little small, but we'll work through it. So the first application that I wanted to talk about is our multi-area transport application. This is very common. This is also known as, what you're probably familiar to as a milk run. We just call it dynamic because we have AMRs, and so it will be dynamic and not necessarily will take the same route. And so the picture at the top, the picture there is of our tugger, and in this specific case, it has, I believe, 2 carts behind it from the photo, and this is at a customer site. It intelligently transports goods, for its, multiple pickup and drop-off points. So warehouse receiving to put away, cart transport, parts delivery to the assembly line. So I'll mention a particular customer, right? They had a request. This was their workflow. So the request came into the monitor. The team member loads product onto the carts, and then the tugger would take them to the drop, and it would unhitch from the carts, and the tugger will go to the staging area to complete the next request in the queue. So these tuggers utilize the intelligence, which I will say pivotal now, and I can go into that in the next slide, but utilizes intelligence in a way that they may not go the same route each time, but it will make the most efficient route to complete the task. So it will not necessarily visit all of the assembly stations, but only those with deliveries on that run. So it saves time, it increases efficiencies, and it increases uptime and throughput. So the next one that we're going to talk about is a staging lane to put away. And so this one is our wonderful pallet jack. This autonomous unit, it works well in inbound logistics, receiving to storage, long distance transport, things like that. So your typical application here, I will say that from this customer, they wanted to clear. Their goal was, we need to get product out from staging area and as quickly as possible before new shipments come, things like that. So quality check was performed at the door, and they're scanning incoming pallets, and the receivers would place those pallets to staging for AMR pickup. Now this is where Pivotal comes in. I've been mentioning Pivotal, Amanda, and haven't explained it. So Pivotal is our multi-agent orchestration engine. So it is basically our proprietary software that sits in between your WMS and your agents on the ground. And when I say agents, I'm referring to your team members or other robots and things like that. So it helps you to manage, workflows and things like that. And there was a great analogy of the difference between what does a WMS do and Pivotal. Your WMS will tell you what needs to be done, and Pivotal is basically how it will get done. So it will utilize the intelligence that it has, and we leverage that technology to help increase those efficiencies. So for this particular case, it did assign the AMR to the staging area. It scans the pallet, and it determines where it should be picking up, which pallet, and it didn't have to be in a specified spot. So we have an advanced pallet detection that it's able to scan and find and pick up the pallet and deliver it to the target destination. So the next one, the next application is multipoint to multipoint transport. This is for those long hauls and heavy materials, and how to move those across the facility quickly and efficiently. Pallet bills, tote returns, garbage runs, pallets to your very narrow aisles, and this will get the job done. For this one, I'll say we had a customer, it was a 3PL actually customer, and they had, I believe, 12 pallet build locations. So they were using a fleet of pallet jacks in 6 different ways. It's unheard of to really be that flexible and to find a solution that really is flexible. It's a great thing to add to your facilities, because everyone knows that, things shift in retail, things shift in CPG, where you're going to have to change, your SKUs and your product numbers and things like that. So the associate would complete a pallet build and then scan the pallet to register it with their WMS. And for them, they utilize Manhattan, and Manhattan has their WMS. So that shows you just an integration that we have achieved working with WMSs as well. And so it would ping Pivotal, it would notify Pivotal, which is the brains, and it will create a task and assign to a specific robot.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of add on to that interleaving of tasks. I think that's really interesting. So as Yvette mentioned, you could have a fleet of robots that are not just assigned to one task repetitively, but they could be assigned to any one of these pallet builds, tote returns, garbage runs. And again, Pivotal tells it what to do in the most efficient way possible. So it could be done doing a tote return, and then it's assigned to a garbage run because that's the next closest thing. So, so I just wanted to, further elaborate on that. Great point, Yvette.
Yeah, that's good. So, and that moves us on to deploy, that I know Amanda was going to get us up and running, since she was a really big part of our campaign at figuring out how we can really move down this time of getting the job done.
Yeah, so traditionally deployments would take, anywhere up to 6 months or more. What we've done is just in response to the trends that we're seeing out there and wanting to, keep people away from unnecessary travel and, avoid bringing additional bodies into workspaces so that you're keeping your workers safe. We've taken our deployment methodology and we've distilled it down into 3 very quick and easy steps. So it's connect, map, configure. So, the day that you send us your purchase order, we'll ship you out a robot within 24 hours. While that robot is on the truck going to you, we'll connect it up to your IT network. So we plug into your IT network, robot arrives, you roll it off the truck, and you turn it on, and it will just automatically sync. So connect. Second step, map. You'll take your site champion, so somebody that you've appointed in advance, and again, use your staff here, pull them into the project, make them feel like they're part of something big, and have that site champion walk the robot around. It's almost like orientation on a new staff member's first day of work. You'll walk them around, you'll show them the break room, you'll show them the storage room, where to get their notepads and pens. Similar with the robot, they get the lay of the land, they see the facility, and they develop the map of quote unquote the world. So it's their world. And then after that, we'll work with you to configure different destinations, waypoints, drop spots, staging areas, even places that the robot should know to stay away from because it's a high foot traffic area. And so, this actually remote deployment methodology has been really great in the past couple of months, and we've been able to deploy in as little as 2 weeks. So, this is something that is really allowing the crawl, walk, run approach to, to help you hit the ground running and move forward quickly.
Absolutely. And I'd have to add there, the most important thing is, to get moving and to get go live in under 4 weeks, you can get started with 1 robot. You can get started with 2 or 4, and you scale from there. So that's where you really can test and really see, this is what it looks like in my facility. And then you scale. It's, as you grow or you have other facilities, it doesn't have to relearn. It just grows from there.
Yeah, exactly.
So after deploy, we are going to evaluate. This is huge. We mentioned at the beginning of the hour when we were talking about what it takes to add automation into your warehouse and address one of the issues of how are you going to evaluate. You're going to need to see what you're going to accomplish, and so gather data and gain insights. And how do we do that? So with Pivotal, we're able to, you'll see these 2 images here. This is what we see. Our NOC, our network operations team, they are able to monitor and see what the warehouse looks like, what the flows of traffic, congestion routes, distance traveled, travel time versus idle time, which is something that is very important, really, to measure. How long are your robots traveling, and how long are they standing in the corner? Could it be utilized in another, an assembly line, or moving a task, or doing a garbage run, things like that. So it's huge to be able to gain insights from this data that you've gathered. So once you've gained, you've taken that information, and now you're going to utilize it. You leverage that data, you're going to adapt. And so respond to these learnings, including process times, process changes, seasonal peaks. We know how the industries are. It's business is seasonal, and some peaks, there are different products that sell more than others. So how do you, respond to that, and how are you flexible? Resolving those bottlenecks that you saw. What are other routes that could make sense resulting from the manual processes? Increasing throughput with existing resources that you have, so that you do have that increased, ROI in a quicker amount of time.
Great, so we're going to move into our second poll. And this question, a little bit more abstract. Do you currently have an automation initiative? And so with this question, that could be an AMR or AGV initiative, or it could be more overarching. What are some of the other automation projects that you have going on? We just kind of want to get a sense for, again, where you're at in identifying the challenges and the solutions. So the options here: yes, we are looking to get started by end of year. Yes, we are looking to get started in 2021. Yes, and we don't have a date in mind. And no, not yet. So go ahead and take a moment and submit your response.
Perfect. So hopefully you guys had a chance to answer that question. You probably already know where you are in that. Right now, we wanted to take a step and kind of review a case study together, bring you back to your college days. And this case study is about a customer that's the largest privately held U.S.-based manufacturer and distributor of medical supplies. Right? So if we address the goals that they had were they wanted to reduce forks empty travel time, they wanted to increase throughput, and improve productivity. It's pretty common, right? It's pretty, these are things that we all want to do. So this was the perfect case study to share. The application was inbound put away with autonomous pallet jacks. So a few stats. It's a 1.5 million square foot flow-through warehouse. Each AMR moved approximately 38 miles per day, and the AMRs ran 17 hours per day, 5 days a week, and 70 hours total. quoted by the regional VP of operations, Vecna Robotics' AMRs take a lot of dead travel in our warehouse supercenters out of the team's days so that they can focus on more skilled work.
That's great. And also here, just to underscore, the AMRs ran 17 hours a day. That's multiple shifts where you're able to let your workers do what they do best, and really relieve them from the dull and the boring travel time. Nobody likes to be sitting behind the wheel for that amount of time. So,
right.
Great.
Yeah. So then that leads. Perfect. So the result of this case study, we had, decided on a number of things that we wanted to measure. And so we achieved the target speeds that we wanted to achieve there, the specific pick and drop times, but also pocket detection exceeded expectations. I'll go back to that after this huge ROI number. So we had achieved a 20-month ROI from the metrics that we recorded. And from talking to customers and different people and prospects, they're happy on average to have a good return within a 2 to 3 year time frame, right? So having 20 months to turn around and have that return is amazing. And we were able to achieve that with this case. And the pocket detection, Amanda, for those on the call, some people may be unfamiliar with the term.
Yeah, great. So pocket detection refers to pallet pockets. So basically, our AMRs are able to identify the pallet pockets so that it can line itself up and actually just drive right in and pick up that pallet without a manual operator. Traditionally, on some older units, they would have to, the AGV or the AMR would kind of drive up and it would park itself, and it would require one of the workers in the facility to stop what they're doing, know that the AGV needs help, walk up, get on it, drive that AGV into the pallet to pick it up. So the AMRs that we're deploying don't require that. So it's just one less thing for the workers to worry about. Now, the other thing that I think Yvette already mentioned earlier, and I'll just kind of add it here as well, is particularly in applications like this where it's a staging lanes to put away application, that's a fast-paced environment. And so you want to get those pallets off the truck into the staging lane as quickly as possible. And so not only do we have the pocket detection, but also the pallet doesn't have to be placed precisely. So you're able to keep your pace, you're able to move things quickly, workers can focus on what they're focusing on without interruption, and the AMR kind of goes about its business.
Exactly. And an added bonus to that are the heat maps that we're able to generate, which shows us and which shows you the areas of congestion and where the bottlenecks are. And so, being able to see this, and some of those you saw a picture earlier about that a few slides back, is it revealed an extensive manual traffic congestion. And so a lot of these ways of being able to see it and then analyze and then adapt, which is something that we measure. And the insights that we're gaining from that data were not only key to shortening the ROI time frame, but also it improved the productivity for the facility as a whole.
Yeah, great. And the reason why we use this as the case study for our scaling piece of the crawl, walk, run approach is that these pilots, so this was one of several different pilots with this particular manufacturer and distributor, and the results from the number of different pilots gave the organization enough information to say, you know what, I know exactly what application, I know exactly what type of AMR I need, let's go for this. And so we're actively working with them now on scaling up.
So you can head on over to our website and grab your copy for that. And then I know we are going to go into questions, right, Amanda? We're going to do questions and see if I know some people have submitted questions, and so we'll see how much time we have for those.
Yeah, looks like we have a couple of questions coming in.
Okay.
And we've got a couple of minutes here as well. So let's see. Some good questions. Let's see, let's start with this one. I already have AGVs running in my facility. Can I use your AMRs as well? And how do they work together? That's a great question.
That is a great question. Well, this is the case for most, really. I know you may have many different vendors running around or equipment, ASRF, WMS, or cranes, what have you. Well, the cool thing about Vecna is that we are, vendor agnostic. We, in quotes, play well with others in the sense that we can work with, we can complement, and we even have the capacity to interoperate with other technologies. So obviously a number of things need to be in place for that to happen, but we are able to do this. We've seen with one of the customer cases that I shared on the webinar today was, we had integration with Manhattan. And so that was a WMS, and also with other in-house softwares as well. We're able to do this and have done this with our prized Pivotal software. So it's something that is a great question. We get it all the time. So yes, we can.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were talking about at the very beginning with our work with Mass Robotics and establishing interoperability standards for the industry.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
Good point. Yeah.
Great. So let's see. Here's another great question. Which industries do you work with?
Well, I manage our food and beverage. We have a team in place that, specializes in many different veins, what have you. But we have, food and beverage, 3PL, retail, auto, manufacturing, grocery, parcel, CPG, you name it. I think that the big question is, are people needing automation? And they're looking at trying to help their workflows, become more efficient. I think that anyone is game. I'll put it that way. and then feel free, my email is on this webinar. Feel free, you can reach out to me, and I will be able to point you in the right direction, because we've got John, who's over 30 years. He handles, retail and several others. So I can point people in the right direction.
Great. Awesome. And looks like we have time for just one more question. This one just came in. It says, so you can deploy remotely. What about training? And I'm assuming that question is referring to remote training.
Okay. Well, this outside of our deployments, we can deploy remotely. So yes, we can do that. As far as training, we train the team or your person that is your champion at your site. We have our team, and we work together to do a training, make sure that you've, got the training wheels off, how to handle, the equipment, but also, just how to respond to different issues and things like that. We manage everything, from our network operations center, so we are in this together. We're a team, and we do trainings remotely. We also have remote demos available and things like that. So they are live, if that's of interest as well. But yeah, so those are remote training opportunities as well as on-site.
Great. Yeah, and I just want to add to that too that we have a pretty robust learning management system, so kind of an online school, if you will, for anyone that is, new to the system, new to your facility, a new employee entirely, or somebody who just wants a refresher.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Great. Well, thank you, Yvette. This was great, and thank you, Marina, for having us on today. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Well, thank you, ladies, both. Yvette and Amanda, that was just some wonderful information and very educational, and I loved all your energy and your explanation. So thank you for joining us and being a part of it. And thank you to our viewers for joining us today. An archived version of today's webinar will be posted on Supply and Demand Chain Executive's website at sbcexec.com/webinars. This is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive, and I look forward to turning into future webinars. Thank you.